Danger, Dr. Danfield. The human mind is like a cave. Beyond the light, there are dark passageways and mysterious recesses. I, Dr. Daniel Danfield, have explored those unknown retreats and know their secrets. Today's story opens in the town of Barlow, located in southern New York State. It's late evening. 4 people are beginning a final hand of bridge. Outside the snug living room, it's bitterly cold. There's a light fall of snow on the ground. Cards are shuffled dealt.
There you are, folks. Pick up your cards, last hand.
Mm-hmm. We really shouldn't stay even for this hand, snowing the way it is. Long drive back to Townsend.
Oh, 10 minutes won't make much difference. It stopped snowing an hour ago. What do you bid, Bill?
Well, I got my cards straightened out here. Okay, I'll bid a spade.
Blanche?
No, I could double bill spades. I'll bid 2 diamonds.
There you go, talking across the board again.
Oh, wasn't I? Only said
Oh,
that.
forget it. Sam, what are you bidding? Sam.
Huh? Oh, let's see here.
Good heavens, he's drunk again.
I am not drunk. Sober as a judge. Let's see,
Oh, Sam, you are drunk. What am I going to say to your mother?
How could he be drunk? We've only had 3 bourbons each.
Yeah, 3 bourbons each. How about that, Sam? You killed the rest of the bottle when you went out to mix those last ones?
You're all crazy. Sober as a judge. I'll bid 5 spades.
5 spades? Oh, what's the sense in playing anymore? Come on, Sam. We might as well get started.
No, wait a minute. I want to talk to this jughead. Now, look, Sam, I'm your best friend, and I'm telling you, if you keep on with this drinking, it's going to get you down.
That's so?
Yeah, that's so. Some people can handle liquor and some can't. You happen to be one of those who can't. Why don't you face it?
Oh, Bill, there's no use talking to him when he's in this condition.
Yes, there is, too. Sam always remembers everything that's said when he's drunk. I think Bill should talk to him. I wouldn't care so much if his mother weren't visiting us. She'll blame it all on me.
See? My little woman doesn't care if I drink. It's only my mother she's thinking about.
Sam, you know that's not so.
It's so.
You are being hard on him, Blanche. After all, Sam works hard, and drinking relaxes his nerves.
Where have I heard that crack before? Sure he works hard. So do I. So do a lot of guys. Just because Sam makes more money than the rest of us doesn't mean he works any harder or has the right to drink himself into a stupor.
Oh. No, I'm stupid, am I?
I didn't say you were stupid. But what I am saying is that one of these days your ticker is going to quit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You can't keep up this pace. You're killing yourself trying to keep ahead of the rest of the crowd.
Nuts to you, Billy boy.
Okay, nuts to me. But you won't be wearing that silly grin when you wind up in a hospital or a casket.
No?
No.
Want to know something, Billy boy? Bet I live longer than you do.
Not the way you're going now, you won't.
Want to bet? I'll keep going twice as hard and live twice as long. You're just lazy, that's all, Billy boy. You're envious. You aren't smart. You spend half your time thinking up excuses because you're not making the dough I am.
Sam, stop.
No. Time somebody told